Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
I finally snapped after my sister's son. Shoved my kid and spat. You're broke and worthless. My sister just sat there laughing. I said, from today on, handle your own life, and walked out. That night, I canceled everything I'd been covering, took back her car, and called in every cent she owed me. Sup Reddit. My 14-year-old nephew humiliated my daughter, and my sister just sat there watching and laughing. My parents didn't say a word. So I finally snapped and gave them all a reality check. Grab your snacks and enjoy the shit show. Name's Parker, 38 male, and for the past 7 years, I've been my family's savior. The kind of brother who gets emergency calls at 11 p.m. and is expected to show up. I'm a network systems administrator for a regional hospital. Boring but pays decently. I've been there 14 years, worked my way up from help desk to running a team of 6. The job involves keeping servers alive, managing security protocols, and occasionally explaining to doctors why they can't use password 123 as their login credentials. It's not glamorous, but it pays the mortgage on our small 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. The house my wife Eva and I saved for over 8 years while eating rice and beans twice a week. Eva and I have a 10-year-old daughter named Trixie. She's the kind of kid who'd rather read than watch TV, who organizes her bookshelf by genre and author, who asks questions about everything and actually listens to the answers. We live about 40 minutes from my parents' place. Far enough to have our own life, but close enough that my sister Ethel still expects me to show up whenever she snaps her fingers. Ethel is 34, 4 years younger than me, but somehow she spent her entire adult life convinced the world owes her something. She's got this way of making everything about her, of twisting every conversation until she's the victim or the hero, depending on what gets her more sympathy points. She married young, but the marriage didn't last, and she kept the kid. Her son Brian is 14 now, and he's basically a smaller, meaner version of his mother, with worse impulse control. She drives a white BMW X3. Leased, of course, but she never mentions that part. Just posts photos of it with captions about treating herself because she deserves it. The lease payments come from an account I set up 4 years ago after she called me sobbing about how her credit was ruined, and she couldn't get approved for anything. And she just needed reliable transportation to get Brian to school and get to work. I co-signed. Then I started making the payments when she missed the first 3 in a row, and my credit started taking hits. Here's the thing about Ethel. She's not stupid. She's actually pretty sharp. She knows exactly what she's doing when she asks for help. She knows how to frame it so you feel like a jerk for saying no. She knows how to make promises she has no intention of keeping. And she knows how to make you feel like the bad guy when you finally catch on. My parents worship her. Always have. She was the baby. The girl after 3 boys, the one who got the princess bedroom and the sweet 16 party, and the tears at her wedding while I got a handshake at my college graduation and a card with $20 in it. When Ethel announced her pregnancy at 19, my parents threw her a baby shower that cost more than my entire wedding. When I got promoted to senior administrator last year, my mom asked if that meant I could help Ethel with her car insurance. That's just how it works in my family. Ethel takes. I give. Everyone pretends this is normal. 7 years ago, she called me after her divorce was finalized. She was a wreck, or at least she sounded like one. Her ex had left her with nothing, she said. She needed help getting back on her feet, just until she figured things out. I believed her. That was my first mistake. I started with small stuff, covered her electricity bill for a few months, helped with groceries, paid for Brian's school supplies. Then the requests got bigger. She needed a better apartment. Could I co-sign? She wanted to go back to school for her real estate license. Could I cover the course fees? She needed a car. Could I help with the down payment? She knew when to ask for these requests. Always right after something good happened to me. Got a raise? Her car broke down. Booked an anniversary trip? Brian suddenly needed braces. Like clockwork. Each time she promised to pay me back. And I'm not a complete idiot. So after the first year, I started making her sign promissory notes. Actual legal documents, loan agreements with repayment terms and interest rates, and signatures witnessed by my buddy Anton, who's a paralegal and thought I was being smart about protecting myself. Anton told me once that the notes were solid, but collecting on them would be a nightmare if Ethel decided to fight it. I told him she wouldn't. She was family. She'd pay me back eventually. I tried bringing up repayment once, about 3 years in. Ethel burst into tears, accused me of not trusting her, and didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. My mom called to say I'd upset her. I apologized, kept paying. Never brought it up again. Over 7 years, I gave Ethel $47,000 in direct financial assistance. Another $31,000 in documented loans with signed agreements. I made $23,000 in car payments on a vehicle registered in her name. I paid $18,000 toward Brian's private school tuition because Ethel insisted the public schools in her district were dangerous. I covered insurance, utilities, dental work, a laptop, furniture, and about a dozen emergencies that always seemed to happen right before she posted photos of herself at expensive restaurants. Total damage, roughly $119,000 over 7 years. I sat with that number one night, calculating it for the first time, made a spreadsheet like the professional nerd I am, added it up 3 times because I didn't believe it the first 2. That's a lot of money. That's college funds and retirement savings and vacations we never took. That's the kitchen renovation Eva wanted, and the new roof we needed, and the reliable second car we kept putting off. That's the emergency fund that never got fully funded. That's Trixie's college account that should have been twice as big by now. Meanwhile, Ethel was posting Instagram stories about treating herself because she deserved it. I never said anything, never confronted her, just kept making the transfers and telling myself it was temporary. And what did I get in return? Not a single dollar of repayment, not genuine gratitude. I got Sunday dinners where my parents talked about Ethel's real estate career taking off, while I sat there knowing I'd funded her license, her marketing materials, and her first 3 months of desk fees. I got Brian looking at my daughter like she was beneath him. Then came the Sunday dinner that changed everything. Every Sunday, my parents host dinner at their place. It's been a tradition since I was a kid. My mom cooks, my dad holds court at the head of the table, and everyone's expected to show up and play their part. That particular Sunday, Eva couldn't make it. Her mother was in town and needed help with some medical appointments, so it was just me and Trixie making the drive to my parents' house. We got there right on time. Ethel and Brian were already installed in the seats. Ethel was scrolling through her phone, barely looking up when we walked in. Brian was playing some game with the volume cranked up, sound effects blasting through the dining room. My mom had made her famous mac and cheese casserole, the one she only makes for special occasions. She'd also set the table with the fancy dishes. I noticed immediately that there were only 4 place settings at the main table. Trixie and I got directed to the smaller side table near the kitchen, like an afterthought. I felt my jaw tighten but didn't say anything. Trixie didn't seem to notice. She just pulled out her book, some fantasy novel she'd been reading for the 3rd time, and settled into her chair. The kid could disappear into a story like nothing else existed. My mom came over and fussed with the tablecloth near us, then made a comment about how the main table was getting crowded and wasn't this cozy, sitting by the kitchen, like we were guests at someone else's party instead of actual family. Dinner started normal enough. My dad told stories about his golf buddies. My mom fussed over Brian, asking about school and his friends, and whether he wanted more casserole. Ethel talked about her latest real estate deal, some condo she claimed to be closing on next week, dropping numbers that sounded inflated and details that didn't quite add up. I mostly stayed quiet, ate my food, watched Trixie read her book, counted down the minutes until we could leave. Then Brian got bored. He stood up from the table, wandered over to where Trixie was sitting, and snatched the book right out of her hands. Just grabbed it mid-sentence and held it up like a trophy. What is this baby garbage? Dragons and princesses? Are you 5? Trixie's face went red. She reached for the book, but Brian shoved her shoulder hard, knocking her back into her seat, then held it higher, laughing. Then he dropped it on the floor and stepped on it. Actually stepped on it, grinding his sneaker into the cover. I was on my feet before I even registered moving. Pick that up, now! My voice came out harder than I meant it to. Brian looked at me like I'd grown a second head. He wasn't used to being told no. It's just a book. Chill out, Uncle Parker. Pick it up. Ethel finally looked up from her phone, her expression shifting from bored to annoyed. Parker, relax. He's just messing around. He ruined her book and he's going to pick it up and apologize. Brian crossed his arms. Didn't move. Then he looked right at Trixie and said the thing that changed everything. Why do you even care? She's broke. Mom says your family doesn't matter. Short, dismissive. The room went dead silent. I looked at Ethel. She was smirking. Actually smirking, like her kid had just delivered some clever one-liner she'd coached him on. My parents suddenly found the tablecloth fascinating. Nobody said a word. Something in me just broke. Years of biting my tongue, getting walked all over, giving and giving while getting nothing back. It all hit me at once. Are you serious right now? My voice was loud. Louder than I meant it to be. Your kid just told my daughter she doesn't matter and you're sitting there smiling? Ethel rolled her eyes. God, Parker, calm down. Kids say stuff. He learned it somewhere. I pointed at Ethel. She laughed. Don't make this about me just because you can't handle a little honesty. Maybe if you weren't such a doormat, your kid wouldn't be so sensitive. My dad spoke up. Parker, that's enough. Sit down. This is a family meal, not a courtroom. I stood there for a long moment, my hands shaking. Trixie was staring at her lap, trying not to cry. Her book was still on the floor, footprint visible on the cover. I walked over, picked up the book, and handed it to her. Then I looked at my family one more time. We're leaving. Ethel scoffed. Such a drama queen. I didn't respond. I took Trixie's hand, walked out the front door, and didn't look back. In the car, Trixie was quiet for a long time. Then she asked me something that gutted me. Dad, is it true that we're broke? I gripped the steering wheel, took a breath. No, sweetheart. We're not broke. We're just not wasteful. There's a difference. She nodded, but I could tell she was still processing, still trying to understand why her cousin would say something so mean, still wondering why her grandparents didn't stand up for her. I didn't have good answers. Not yet. But by the time we got home, I'd made a decision. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there in the dark, replaying every moment of that dinner, every smirk, every dismissive comment, every year of being the family's walking wallet while they treated me like I didn't exist. Eva got home around 11. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. I told her everything. The fact that my own nephew had basically called my daughter worthless, and everyone at that table thought it was fine. She didn't say much, just listened. Then she asked one question. What are you going to do about it? I told her I was done. Done being the backup plan. Done funding Ethel's lifestyle while she mocked my daughter. Done pretending this was normal family stuff. Eva nodded. Good. Then do it right. So I did. The next morning, I called Anton. Told him I needed his help. Anton's been my friend since college. He's the guy who witnessed all those promissory notes I had Ethel sign. The guy who warned me years ago that I was being taken for a ride. The guy who never said I told you so, even when he had every right to. Finally woke up, huh? That's what he said when I told him what happened. No judgment, just quiet satisfaction, like he'd been waiting for this call for years. We met for coffee that afternoon at a diner near his office. I brought everything. Bank statements going back 7 years. Transfer receipts. The promissory notes with Ethel's signature and Anton's witness signature. Insurance documents. The car lease agreement with my name as co-signer. 7 years of financial records that told a story of getting used by someone who was supposed to be family. He spread the papers across the table, his expression getting darker with every page he reviewed. The waitress came by twice to refill our coffees, and both times he waved her off without looking up. Parker, this is a lot. You realize you've given this woman almost $120,000? I know. And she's never paid back a dime. Not on the documented loans. Not on anything. I know. And you have signed loan agreements for about $31,000 of this, with her signature, witnessed, and dated, with repayment terms she completely ignored. That's why I called you. Anton leaned back, tapping his pen against the table. Here's the deal. The loan agreements are enforceable. You could sue her in civil court, get a judgment, try to collect. But that takes time, costs money, and if she doesn't have anything worth taking, you might win on paper but never see a dollar. At least not right away. But the judgment would be on record. If she ever gets her act together, ever has anything worth protecting, you'd be first in line. What about the car? The BMW? Anton pulled out the lease agreement, studied it for a moment. You're the co-signer. Your name's on the paperwork. And if I'm reading this right, you've made every single payment for the past 4 years while she's made, let me count here, 0. 0. Right. So technically, you have real standing here. The leasing company cares about one thing, getting paid. You've been the one paying. If you contact them, explain what's going on, they might be willing to work with you on a co-signer-initiated surrender. It's not common, but it happens. Walk me through it. You call the leasing company. Explain you want to terminate your co-signing agreement. They'll look at the payment history, see that you've been the one keeping the account current, and they'll give you options. Either they require the primary lessee to find someone else to back her credit, which Ethel can't do because her credit is garbage, or they authorize you to surrender the vehicle yourself. I nodded. What about my parents? What about them? They've enabled this. They've watched her drain me for years and never said a word. Anton shrugged. Your parents aren't legally on the hook for your sister's debts, but if you want to cut them off, that's your call. Just don't expect them to get it. People like that, they've built their whole worldview around the idea that you're the provider and Ethel's the princess. They're going to blame you. I don't expect them to understand anything. Good, because they won't. But here's the thing, Parker. Anton leaned forward, looking me straight in the eye. You just need to protect yourself and your family. The rest of them can figure out their own problems for once. We spent the next 2 hours building a plan. By the time I left that coffee shop, I had a timeline, a strategy. And for the first time in 7 years, I could think clearly. Monday morning, I started making calls. First up, the leasing company. I explained that I was the co-signer on a vehicle lease, that I'd been making all payments for 4 years, and that I wanted to formally terminate my co-signing arrangement and arrange for the vehicle to be surrendered. The representative was confused at first. This wasn't a typical request. But after I explained the situation, after I sent them documentation showing every payment had come from my account, they transferred me to their special accounts department. The woman there was named Rachel. I could hear her typing as I talked, pulling up records. Mr. Hartwell, I'm looking at your account history. You've made 47 consecutive payments on this vehicle. The primary lessee has made 0. That's correct. And you want to terminate your co-signing agreement? Yes. Okay, here's what we can do. You can submit a formal request to withdraw as co-signer. If the primary lessee can't provide alternative credit support within 30 days, the vehicle will need to be returned to us. Or, if you can bring the vehicle in yourself, we can speed things up. What do you mean, bring it in myself? If you can get the vehicle to one of our authorized return locations, we can process the surrender right away and close out your co-signing obligation. You'd need the primary lessee's consent, or you'd need to show that you have legal standing to take possession. I've made every payment. Then I'd say you have a solid case. I can send you the paperwork for a co-signer-initiated surrender. It's unusual, but given your payment history, I don't see any issues on our end. We'll authorize you to retrieve the vehicle and bring it to our nearest return location. I'll include the address and instructions. I filled out the forms that afternoon, scanned them, sent them back, received confirmation and authorization within 2 hours. Rachel included written instructions on exactly what to do and where to bring the car. Next call, Brian's private school. I'd been paying $500 a month toward his tuition for the past 3 years. Ethel had told me it was a loan, that she'd pay me back when her real estate commissions started coming in. She never paid back a cent. The school's billing office was efficient. I explained I was terminating my third-party payment arrangement, effective immediately. They asked for written confirmation. I sent it. Done. Then the utilities. I'd been covering Ethel's electric bill for 2 years. The power company didn't ask questions. Just removed my payment method and closed out my access to the account. Insurance was next. I'd added Ethel's car to my policy years ago to get her a better rate. One call to my agent and she was removed. Her coverage would lapse within 30 days unless she arranged her own policy. By Tuesday afternoon, I'd cut every financial connection to my sister. Every automatic payment, every co-signed agreement, every monthly transfer. Then came the hard part. Wednesday morning, I drove to Ethel's apartment complex. The BMW was in her assigned parking spot. I had the spare key, the one she'd given me years ago in case of emergencies. I had the authorization paperwork from the leasing company, signed and stamped. I parked my car across the lot. Checked the time. 8:40 a.m. Ethel should be inside getting ready for work. Brian should be at school. The coast was clear. I walked over to the BMW, put the key in the door. I got in, started the engine. As I was pulling out of the spot, I saw movement in my peripheral vision. Ethel's neighbor, an older guy walking his dog, staring at me with a confused expression. I gave him a wave, drove past like this was completely normal. He'd probably tell Ethel he saw some guy drive off with her car. Good. Let her find out that way. The drive to the dealership took 40 minutes. I followed Rachel's instructions to the letter, parked in the designated surrender area, walked inside with my documentation. The surrender process took about an hour. Paperwork, inspection, signatures, a final confirmation that my co-signing obligation was terminated and that Ethel would receive notification within 5 business days. I called Anton from the parking lot. It's done. Clean handoff. How do you feel? Like I should have done this years ago. The call came Thursday evening. I was in the backyard with Trixie, helping her set up a new bird feeder she'd gotten for her birthday. Eva was inside making dinner. Normal evening. Then my phone rang. Ethel's name on the screen. I let it ring 5 times before answering. Her voice was straight up toxic. Where is my car, Parker? Your car? You mean the car I've been paying for? The one with my name on the lease? You know exactly what I mean. The dealership called and said the vehicle was surrendered. What the heck did you do? I terminated my co-signing agreement and returned the vehicle. It was costing me about $500 a month I couldn't afford anymore. Silence. Then she lost it. You can't just do that. That was my car. I need that car for work. How am I supposed to show houses to clients without a car? Then maybe you should have been making the payments. Or maybe you should have saved up and bought your own car like every other adult on the planet. I was going to pay you back. When, Ethel? You've owed me over $30,000 in documented loans for years. You haven't paid back a single dollar. Not even a token gesture. Not even $100 on my birthday with a little note saying, "Hey, thanks for keeping my life afloat. I've been busy building my career, your career that I paid for. The real estate license I covered, the marketing materials I handled, the desk fees I took care of. That career?" She didn't have a good answer to that. "I can't believe you would do this to me. Over what? A stupid argument at dinner? Your son called my daughter worthless, and you sat there and smiled. Oh my God, are you still hung up on that? It was a joke. Kids say stuff. Your kid said stuff he learned from you. And no, I'm not still hung up on it. I'm over it. Way over it. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done. The car's gone. The tuition payments are canceled. Your utilities are off my credit card. Your insurance lapses at the end of the month. Figure it out yourself." More silence. I could hear her panicking. "Parker, you can't do this. Mom and Dad are going to flip out when they hear about this." "Good. Tell them how much I've given you over the past 7 years. Tell them about the loans you never paid back. Tell them how you've been living off me while calling me a loser behind my back. I never. Brian doesn't come up with that stuff on his own. He learned it somewhere, and I'm done pretending I don't know where." I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I declined it. Then my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Eva came outside, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Everything okay?" I looked at her. Looked at Trixie, who was carefully filling the bird feeder with seeds, focused and content, completely unaware of the storm I'd just set off. "Yeah, everything's fine. Dinner's ready? 5 minutes. Perfect." We went inside, ate dinner. Didn't talk about Ethel or my parents or any of it. Just enjoyed the quiet. The voicemail from my mom was completely unhinged. How could I do this to Ethel? She was struggling. She needed help. I was being cruel and petty and selfish. Family supports family. Blood is thicker than water. I saved the voicemail. Then I blocked her number. The next 3 weeks were chaos. Satisfying, cathartic, totally predictable chaos. Without the BMW, Ethel couldn't keep up appearances. She had to borrow cars from friends, take ride shares to showings, explain to clients why she was suddenly arriving in an Uber instead of her own vehicle. Her business, which had always been more image than substance, started falling apart. One of her colleagues told a mutual friend that Ethel had shown up to a listing presentation in a borrowed minivan, with Cheerios crushed into the floor mats and a car seat in the back. The clients went with a different agent. Then another listing fell through when she couldn't make the showing on time. Then a third when she showed up looking stressed and frazzled. Nothing like the polished professional her marketing materials promised. Without my tuition payments, Brian got pulled from his private school mid-semester. Ethel tried to set up a payment plan, but the school required a deposit she couldn't cover. She tried negotiating. She tried crying. She tried threatening to leave a bad review. None of it worked. He ended up at the local public school, which was actually fine, but Ethel acted like I'd sent him to prison. Brian apparently told his new classmates that he used to go to a much better school before his uncle ruined his life. Got into 3 actual fights the first month. One kid's parent threatened to press assault charges. Ethel blamed me for that too. She posted a long rant on Facebook about how the system fails single mothers. Conveniently left out the part where she'd been living on her brother's dime for 7 years while posting vacation photos. Without my utility payments, her power got shut off for 3 days before she could scrape together the deposit for a new account in her name. She had to stay with a friend until it got sorted. Posted something vague on social media about going through a difficult time and asking for prayers. One thing led to another. Without the car, her income dropped. Without income, she couldn't cover expenses. Without covering expenses, her credit got worse. She couldn't get a new car. A downward spiral that had been coming from the moment she decided to build her life on someone else's wallet. Anton kept me updated on the legal side. Ethel had consulted 3 different lawyers about the car situation, hoping to find one who'd tell her she had a case. All 3 said the same thing. I'd done nothing wrong. The leasing company had authorized the surrender. The co-signer who makes all the payments has standing to terminate. If anything, she was the one who'd potentially committed fraud by representing herself as capable of making payments she never intended to make. The promissory notes were another story. Anton filed the paperwork to convert them into formal judgments. Small claims for amounts under $10,000. Civil court for the larger documented loans. The process would take months, but the judgments would be on record. If Ethel ever got her act together, we'd be first in line to collect. She got served at her new apartment and apparently lost it in the hallway. A week later, she posted a cryptic message about knowing who your real people are. Comment section full of supportive messages from people who had no idea she owed me $31,000. Even a couple relatives piled in. Whatever. My parents tried to step in. They showed up at my house unannounced on a Saturday morning, my dad pounding on the door like he was serving a warrant. By the time I came downstairs, they were already in the living room. My dad pacing, face red. My mom perched on the edge of our couch with tears already going. Parker, this has gone way too far. You need to fix this. I was still toweling off my hair. Took my time. You watched your grandson humiliate my daughter and said nothing. Now I'm supposed to keep funding his mom's lifestyle? She's your sister. She's also someone who's taken $119,000 from me over 7 years without paying back a cent. Neither of them answered. My mom switched tactics, tears drying up. Fine. Maybe she should have been more grateful. But she's family. She needs help. Then help her. You're her parents. Write her a check. Co-sign her next car. Be the family you keep lecturing me about. Silence. They didn't have the money. Never had. They'd remortgaged their house twice, maxed out cards, lived beyond their means for decades. That's why they'd always pointed Ethel in my direction. Get out of my house. Don't come back until you're ready to apologize to my daughter. Ava appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. You heard him. They left. Sat in the driveway for 5 minutes, probably waiting for me to come running out. I made coffee instead. Anton called me that afternoon. Ethel had contacted a lawyer about the car situation. The lawyer told her she had no case. The surrender was completely legal. If anything, she owed me money, and now I had the judgments to prove it. She actually thought she could sue you? Apparently. Went to 3 different lawyers trying to find one who'd take her case. That's wild. The sheer audacity. That's Ethel. Never met a situation she couldn't make worse by refusing to take any responsibility. Anton laughed. You know what the best part is? One of those lawyers she talked to? He called me, asked if I wanted to take your case against her instead. Said it was a slam dunk. 6 weeks after I pulled the plug, Ethel's carefully put together life was in shambles. The real estate agency she worked for let her go. Her broker gave her 2 weeks' notice, then made it immediate when Ethel threw a fit in the office. She posted another vague social media rant about family betrayal and toxic relationships without naming names. Comments full of support from people who had no idea she'd been living off me for nearly a decade. Her apartment lease came up for renewal, and she couldn't afford it. The rent was $1,800 a month, which had always seemed manageable when someone else was covering her car, utilities, and kids' tuition. Without those subsidies, the math didn't work. She moved into a smaller place on the wrong side of town, the kind of building where the hallway always smells like mildew, and the super never returns calls. 2 bedrooms, no dishwasher, street parking only. Brian had to change schools again. My parents invited Ethel to move in with them. Generous in theory, except their house was already too small for them, and they were struggling with their own bills. The mortgage was underwater from their second refinance. Credit cards maxed. Retirement savings nearly gone. Within 2 weeks of Ethel moving in, they were at each other's throats. 3 adults and a teenager in a house meant for 2. Arguments about dishes and noise and personal space. My mom calling friends to complain about how hard her life had become. My dad spending more time in the garage just to get away from everyone. Ethel apparently crashed their car backing out of the driveway. Didn't have insurance because I'd stopped paying it. They had to Uber everywhere for a month, and of course, they blamed me. Started calling again, not to apologize, but to beg me to reconsider, to be reasonable, to think about family. I didn't take their calls. Anton helped me file the paperwork to formalize the outstanding loans. The judgments went through without contest because Ethel couldn't afford a lawyer to fight them. $31,000 in documented loans, now officially on record. If she ever got her act together, ever had assets worth protecting, we'd be first in line to collect. Maybe I'd never see that money, but the principle mattered. The record of what she'd done and what she owed existed now, permanent and undeniable. Meanwhile, life got better for us. Ava and I finally started the kitchen renovation we'd been putting off for years. New countertops, new cabinets, a proper island with seating for 3. We took Trixie to the beach for a long weekend, her first real vacation since she was 6. We'd always said we couldn't afford it, always said next year, always prioritized being responsible over actually living. Trixie collected shells and built sandcastles and asked me to read her book aloud by the campfire. I read the whole thing, every chapter. She fell asleep against my shoulder on the last night, and I just sat there watching the fire, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I started sleeping better, stopped grinding my teeth at night. The dentist had been warning me about that for years, telling me I was going to crack a molar if I didn't get the stress under control. My relationship with Eva improved too. We started actually talking again, not just coordinating schedules and managing logistics. We went on dates. Just the two of us, like we used to before. I became the family ATM. We laughed more. Trixie noticed the change. She started asking if we could do more family things. She stopped asking about Grandma and Grandpa, stopped asking about Aunt Ethel. Kids pick up on stuff like that. Then, on a cold Tuesday evening in early February, Ethel showed up at my door. I was in the garage, organizing tools, a weekend project I'd been meaning to get to for months. I heard a car pull into the driveway. Old sedan, dented fender, rust around the wheel wells, engine making sounds no engine should make. She got out. She looked wrecked, hair pulled back in a messy bun, clothes wrinkled, probably slept in, dark circles under her eyes. The confident, polished woman who'd smirked at me across my parents' dinner table was gone. This was someone who'd finally run out of people to use. She walked toward the garage, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. I didn't invite her inside. Didn't even move from my workbench. Just watched her approach like I was watching a stranger. She started talking before she even reached me. "Parker, please. I know I screwed up. I know I should have been more grateful. But I'm drowning here. Mom and Dad can't help me anymore. I lost my job last week. Brian is struggling at his new school. He's been getting into fights. Blah, blah, blah." I let her rant. Leaned against my workbench. Arms crossed. Face blank. "I'm asking for one more chance. Just help me get back on my feet. I'll pay you back this time. I swear. I'll sign whatever you want." She was crying now. The desperation was real. "No." Ethel blinked. "What?" "No. Parker, please, I'm begging you. I have nowhere else to go." "Not my problem. I'm your sister." "Not anymore." She wiped her eyes, her expression shifting, the real Ethel coming out from behind the tears. "So that's it? One stupid comment from a teenager and you throw away your entire family? That comment showed me exactly what you think of me. Always have. I never—" "Yeah, you did." She stared at me, searching for angles, for leverage, finding none. "Go home, Ethel." "Parker, leave, now, or I will get you removed." She stood there for another moment, waiting for me to soften, to be the pushover she'd counted on for 7 years. I didn't. Eventually, she turned around, walked back to her car, and drove away. I watched until her taillights disappeared. Then I went back to organizing my tools. Eva appeared in the garage doorway a few minutes later. "Saw Ethel's car. You okay?" I picked up a wrench, put it in its place. "Yeah, she was crying for help, but don't worry about it. She won't annoy us again." Eva nodded slowly and smiled. "Good." She went back inside. I finished organizing the garage. Then I turned off the light, closed the door, and went inside to help Trixie with her homework. She was working on a book report, her favorite fantasy novel spread across the kitchen table. The same book Brian had stepped on all those weeks ago. She'd kept reading it anyway. Kids are tough like that. The night was quiet. Our house was warm. My family was together. For the first time in 7 years. That quiet felt like peace. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.